Hey, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Welcome to another episode of TheSHIP, a podcast that explores the nature and dynamics of relationship between mentors and mentees. TheSHIP serves as a platform for mentors to tell their stories about how they have navigated to where they are. We will hear stories about critical pivots and points aided by those who mentored them, helping these mentors to discover their purpose. Today, I am your host, Sante Malima, joined by my co-host, Gerard Luzangi. On this episode, we're excited. We have a distinguished guest joining us on the show, none other than Professor Julie Makani. We'll get to hear about her story. She's a true inspiration to many, having dedicated years of her life to cutting-edge research in the field of genomics and making significant contributions in the area of sickle cell research. Professor Makani is affiliated with TAS, Tuheda, and Dakota. Her journey has been filled with many remarkable achievements. She has generously shared her knowledge and expertise by mentoring and teaching countless of individuals, both in the UK and back home in Tanzania. We are honored to have her here on our platform. On this episode, we will have the opportunity to pick her brains and learn from her vast experience, particularly regarding mentorship. Karibu sana dada.
Karibu sana.
Asanteni sana.
Kwa hiyo, welcome aboard the ship. Without further ado, let's get you sailing. We would like to hear a bits about yourself. Where are you based? What has been keeping you busy lately?
Asante, thank you very much. So my name is Professor Julie Makani. I am based at Muhimbili University of Health and Allied Sciences, or MUHAS. This is in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. And that's where I work, and I've been working for many years, since 2001 actually. So at the moment, I'm on sabbatical leave from MUHAS. So MUHAS encourages people to take sabbatical leaves every 5 to 7 years.
Okay.
So I'm on sabbatical leave from MUHAS for a year, and I'm Provost Visiting Professor at Imperial College London in the UK. So I'll be here until April of 2024.
Okay. And what is your training? You said are you practicing over there in the UK, or you're only at the Imperial College as a professor? Are you also practicing medicine there? What are you doing over there currently?
So I'm a clinical academic, or a medical physician scientist. So what that means is that I'm a qualified doctor. So I trained at Muhimbili as a medical doctor, where I got my MD degree, and then I specialized in internal medicine. So and then following that, I did a PhD in clinical epidemiology of sickle cell disease. So my work is divided into three main parts: providing services, healthcare services, teaching and academics, and then the third is research. And so depending on where I am, that I balance those three main activities. Yeah.
Wonderful. I think your name has come up several times when we talk with other individuals, or your name has been recommended as somebody that we should talk to, and that's why we kind of like it. It appears that you have touched a lot of lives in the people in our community. Kwa hiyo we are kind of we're really interested to know nini kimekusukuma kwenye hiyo field ya kufundisha au kumenta wengine.
Asante, it's very kind of you. So I think one of the things that naweza kusema sijui ilianza zamani, lakini my recollections, I went to Weruweru to do my A-levels, from 5 na form 6. And in Weruweru, so this is Weruweru is a high school, girls only. It's in Kilimanjaro. And the headmistress there was Mama Maria Kam at that time. And the school, the way we did it was girls only, it was Shule Serikali, and we were the third cohort of people doing A level. So it was quite new to Liwaza. And there was a great culture there of mentorship learning. And that was, I think, my recollection. I'm sure it started before that, like in him who we mentioned. Then I went into medical school at Muhimbili in 1989 to 1994. And that was also a really learning exercise, being able to learn from peers, learn from others, and then learn from obviously teachers and trainers. One of the things that really struck me when I started working, I was interested in hematology from very early on. One of the things that really struck me about postgraduate training is that wakati nilipomaliza, this was in 1994, at that time ndio kulikuwa kuna peak ya the HIV pandemic. So a lot of the opportunities ambazo zilikuwa available were in public health, etc. And I was always interested in internal medicine or clinical work. So it was very interesting kipindi hicho to look and to see how people ambao walikuwa wanataka kufanya internal medicine, they actually froze the programs. You actually couldn't train in internal medicine wakati ule. The opportunities were not there, the programs were not running. So what I ended up doing was I came to the UK and I did my postgraduate diploma here, and then I did the training leading to membership of the Royal College of Physicians.
Yeah.
And so this was the internal medicine training. And again, kitu ambacho nilichokuwa nakumbuka going back now, so I did the training here for 2 years, coincidentally here at Imperial, and then nikarudi with the intention of setting up a program. Na kitu ambacho nilichoona hapa at the Hammersmith or at Imperial was, Hammersmith is the hospital and Imperial is the university, ni kwamba they had a very, very much an integrated program. Kwa hiyo ukiwa daktari, unatibu wagonjwa, unafundisha, na pia fanya research. So when I went back to Tanzania, my affiliation ilikuwa with University of Oxford. Kwa hiyo that was what I wanted to do, to set up. And then from a mentorship perspective, there's always this balance that one has. Ni kwamba, do you finish your own training, alafu ndio uanze kufundisha wengine au kusupport wengine, or do you train people as you go? Okay. And there are different people. Kuna watu ambao wanasema no, mimi sasa hivi I'll just focus on myself, nimalize my own training, niwe professor, alafu ndio nitaanza kumentor. But with me, I had a different perspective, because I wanted to train people as I was going. Kwa hiyo, the consequence of that obviously is that it took me much longer to complete my PhD. I did it part-time because I wanted to, wakati mimi naendelea, na pia set things up. So we restarted the MMed program. This is the Masters in Medicine program in Hematology and Blood Transfusion, ambayo ilikuwepo, but it had been stagnant. We then set up new programs such as the super specialization in hematology and blood transfusion, and then we started training people in masters and PhDs by research. So this is something that we did, and I think the other thing about pia kili contribute is the fact that I in some departments there ulikuwa una observe kwamba you have senior people and hamna junior people coming up ambao wanakuwa trained, wanakuwa mentored. And so I made again a conscious decision kwamba nikifikisha miaka 50 I would retire from leadership or active work. And here in goal or intention, I spoke about it because I feel that by doing that, one, kulazimisha wewe mwenyewe kusema, okay, nianze kupanga or to have a succession plan. And in order for you to have a succession plan, you have to have people who are capable around you. So it really forces you to a certain extent to train people. And then the other thing is that it also tells people who are around you, kusema kwamba nile mwaka nikifikisha miaka 50, and that I turned 50 in 3 years ago. Kwa hiyo
Why miaka 50, just for out of curiosity?
It was just, to a certain extent, there's an aspect of it that was quite arbitrary, in the sense that at that I don't know, at that time I thought 50 was very old, number one. Number two, ni kwamba yani ni ile, if I was to reflect on it, ni kwamba ukiangalia retirement age for I'm a government employee, so retirement age, whether it's government or hata huku in global north, is usually 60, 65. And of course, mtu unaweza ukaendelea in academia, unaweza ukaendelea mpaka, I'm working with colleagues ambao wana miaka 80 kama wako active, yeah. But then I think it's really important not to have active, yeah, this is what I felt. So I just nilikuwa nimejiambia miaka 50 mambo ya kuwa, you know, whether ni mkuu wa idara or vice chancellor or whatever, 50 really you should support other people to do that, yeah. So I think that was something ambayo that I thought about, and it's quite funny because a couple of years ago I was talking to a reporter and she asked me, mimi nakumbuka yani ni ile ulisema kwamba ukifikisha miaka 50 utaretire. So yeah, so it was interesting. Yeah, so that's I think that's one of the reasons. And there's been a lot of learning in some instances, you know, people that you've mentored either directly or indirectly, kwa sababu yani unakuta, if you're teaching undergraduates, you're teaching 300, 400 people, and then so you may not know everyone, so people would remember you. So sometimes people would tell me, oh no, you were a great mentor. Others would say, oh my goodness, no, you were really difficult. Mwalimu ulikuwa yani ile mimi sikutaka kusoma internal medicine kwa sababu yako, nilikuwa na
Wow.
so you and
so you get both spectrums.
You get both spectrums, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So it's been an interesting journey, yeah, mentorship, yeah.
Naomba nigusie ni touch hiyo kidogo kwenye ile masomo yako pale Weruweru. Mama Kam ni mwalimu ambaye tumekuwa, I think alikuwa mwalimu mkuu pale kwa kipindi kirefu. Ni mwalimu ambaye tumemsikia kitambo kwa dada zetu ambao wamepita Weruweru, vile kwa mimi I think Mama Kam ni senior kidogo kwa mama yangu, kwa hiyo we have always heard of her kama ni mtu ambaye alikuwa anapenda hiyo aspect ya kumenta watu wengine. Would you say kwamba ile ilipandikizwa au hiyo element ya kutaka kufundisha wengine na kuwasaidia wengine na mtu kama yeye katika hiyo career?
Definitely. I think obviously asikumbuke tulikuwa wangapi darasani kwetu, lakini yani form 5 kulikuwa kuna 2 streams, yani PCB na ECA, which is the economics and commerce stream, and then the science stream. So tulikuwa sio wachache, tulikuwa wengi. And when I look back, not everybody went into teaching or went into kind of like or did a lot of mentoring, but we received the same kind of training. I think the thing specifically with her, and I think that's also quite important, is that I also very intentionally focused on mentoring women, and so that's something that I intentionally did, and whether that's because of Weruweru, yes, most likely. I have 3 daughters, and 2 of them have gone to Barnard College, which is a girls-only university, or college, which is part of Columbia University. So I think there is value in kind of mentorship amongst women, and you imetoka Weruweru. I think the second aspect, which I found very, which struck me, is that in the reception or the main lobby of Weruweru, there used to be a big poster, poster ambayo ilikuwa ina quotation ya Mwalimu Nyerere, and I can't remember the exact words, but to paraphrase, it was giving a talk about education and saying that if you as an individual have been educated by the government, you have a responsibility to give back to your country. And I
Ndio.
think, and akatoa mfano akasema, kwa mfano unaweza ukawa uko kijiji wamekusanya chakula, wamempa mtu mmoja ili yeye apate chakula, apate nguvu, aende kutafuta mafanikio, and then the expectation is that that investment, that person atarudi. So if you don't come back, whether come back directly by working, and I must confess my perspective has changed then, because wakati ule I felt very, very strongly kwamba you know, Watanzania, educated Tanzania want a responsibility of building Tanzania, because it's not going to be built by anybody else, whether it's excellence in science and technology. We have to do this. And so I used to feel very strongly about people who would leave and not contribute in any way. It's slightly different now. I think I think there's beginnings, and I think this is part of the whole encouraging the Tanzanians in the diaspora who give back. Yeah. I think it's really important to do that, because one, a huge proportion of people in Tanzania, either directly or indirectly, wamesomeshwa na the government, you know, whether it's whether it's in private schools or in public schools, but directly or indirectly. And even if they haven't, you know, wewe kama Tanzania ni kwamba ni ile, it doesn't matter where you are. Lakini if you look at how other nations are built, they're built really by very strong partnerships between wale ambao wako nyumbani na wale ambao wako nje nyumbani. And I think that's something that's also really really important. But I think for me, and I always felt very, I remember when I came back from came back to Tanzania after doing my postgraduate training. So I was away for maybe 2 years, going back and forth, because I'd already started a family. I got married very early, and we had children very early. So we balance the children, family, and career. And I remember going back and saying, Ivi Kwanini, I've seen what they do at Imperial, in Oxford, at the NIH, in Harvard, and ni watu kama sisi. So why can't we develop excellence like that in Tanzania? So that's what I wanted to do. But the kind of pushback that you get from watu wenyewe. I remember once going and talking to somebody. I think, you know, this was somebody who was working at a bank, and I was looking to fundraise for I wanted to send some students on attachments or electives. Yani, kwa hiyo tulikuwa Tanzania, nataka waje Uingereza to do 2 months of student electives. And I remember so clearly, the person, she was a young Tanzanian working in the banking sector, saying, you know, your problem is that unataka ku establish many, quote unquote, Oxfords or Harvard in Tanzania. Hiyo haiwezekani. Hivi ni vitu ambavyo vinawezekana only huko Ulaya. Wewe sasa hivi you should focus, badilisha your proposal, uombe hela ya kwenda kuchimba visima. Wow. And it was just one of those things that was just incredibly, it was just incredible to have people have that perspective. And unfortunately, because sasa hivi, you know, they may not say it, but there's still that whole thing when you say, one of the things that I'm really kind of passionate about sasa hivi is gene and cell therapy for sickle cell disease. So this is curative, you know, you cure ugonjwa kwa kutumia either transplant or kutumia gene therapy. Na kwa muda mrefu, and this is not just in Tanzania, the thing is, hivyo ni vitu vigumu sana, sisi we should just focus on vitu, you know, kuwapa watu dawa hizi na hizi na hizi, lakini hayo ni mambo makubwa. Sasa ukisema kwamba ni mambo makubwa, wagonjwa wetu watasema kwamba kama hatuwezi kufanya hivyo, tutaenda outside of the country. So why don't we do it in our own country? So I'm really excited. I don't know if you are aware, but Tanzania is it's the third country sasa hivi in sub-Saharan Africa ambayo ime-establish bone marrow transplant services at Muhimbili and in Benton Nkapa, and they have successfully transplanted sickle cell patients and cured in those. So far ni watoto wanne. And
congratulations.
yeah, no, so this is not me, and this is one of the things, going back to the mentorship thing, is, you know, these are people ambao Dr. Stella Malangai is pamoja na Dr. Shakilo ambao ndio were the leads. Dr. Stella ni mtu ambaye alitrain, she did her M.Med in hematology, alifanyia Muhimbili. So it's really encouraging that ameenda, amekuwa independent sasa hivi, set up the program in partnerships with you know, partners, and they've been able to do that. So it's really, and this would be indirect, so I wouldn't have the vanity of kusema kwamba no, ni mimi hapana. It's, that's why I think it's really important to say indirect, because one of the lessons, negative lessons that I learned was that sometimes I'm too enthusiastic, and not everybody likes that. Some people wanataka kuwa independent mapema. So I've learned to kind of respect that and be mindful about that. But it's just really exciting to have. So the other countries are South Africa and Nigeria, and it's just incredible kwamba tumeweza kufanya hivyo. And sasa hivi, one of the things that I'm hoping to do is, and we've already again started this process, is for us to participate in gene therapy trials and to really work on the kind of preclinical aspect of things, so that we're not only just doing the trials, but we're also developing the kind of products.
Yeah, giving back is definitely one of the aspects about ukiona indirectly. It's kind of like what we're also doing here with the SHIP. Gerard is based in Toronto. I'm based in the northeast part of the US, and sometimes we bring other people who are in different corners of the world. Kwa hiyo unaona hiyo kwamba kuna hiyo aspect ya watu ambao tuko nje kidogo, tunaangalia what are ways we can find ways to give back home. But umegusia kitu hapo kwamba mwanzoni ulikuwa unaona watu wanaotoka nyumbani kwenda nje, ulikuwa you have a different feeling about them, but your perspective has changed. Is that because of some kind of an experience, or is that related to some kind of mentorship learning? What do you attribute that to, that change of perspective?
To be honest, I don't know, and I think maybe ni rephrase kusema kwamba perspective yangu imebadilika. Niweze kusema kwamba I have become more understanding of people who, for personal reasons or for professional reasons, wanaamua, you know, kwenda yani kukaa nje ya Tanzania. Kwa hiyo nafikiri it's being more less judgmental of people who make those decisions, either for personal reasons or for professional reasons. Kwa hiyo unaweza kukuta kwamba mtu anaweza kusema kwamba mimi you know, I recently were working on these guidelines for centers of excellence with WHO Afro, and I was chatting to this one of the people who was in that expert group, and he's from Nigeria and he's working in Kuwait. And I always used to look at him and just say, "Ish, Yamani, yani Nilo, why would you go and work in Kuwait?" And then when we were chatting, he said, you know, he had some, for personal reasons, health-related reasons of his wife who needed chronic care. He could not go back to Nigeria. He could not, because, you know, the wife needed chronic care that was at that time not available. Kwa hiyo vitu kama hivyo vinanifanya niwe less judgmental, I should say. I do think though that and it's really great to see what you all are doing with this program, and there's more engagement with Africans, Tanzanians in the diaspora. Kitu ambacho kidogo is frustrating is that I personally feel, and I don't know how you all think, but I just feel that mtu ukiwa nje, and I don't know whether it's you need to justify being outside or whatever, but they are extremely critical of things ambazo zinaendelea huko Tanzania. And so my mind is saying, you know, things are not perfect. There's a lot that needs to be done. But if something is such a problem and you feel so strongly about it, there's nothing that's stopping you from fixing it.
What are you doing about it? Yeah.
Exactly. Why don't you just do something about it? Instead of complaining or criticizing it, whatever.
Yeah.
And of course, there are lots of barriers. Na sasa sisi ambao tuko Tanzania, pia inabidi kubadilisha mindset. Unajua, not to resent people ambao wameondoka. And at the same time, you know, you to a certain extent, you really get frustrated with the constant criticism wakati wewe uko kwenye mazingira where you're really trying to work na kuboresha environment. So I think that kuna haja ya perspectives na attitudes za watu zibadilike on both sides, kwa Watanzania ambao wako Tanzania na kwa Watanzania ambao wako nje, and to really look and say, right, this is a problem, how do we solve it together? You know,
absolutely.
Yeah,
it's not going to come from mtu mwingine. Yeah.
I think for myself, it's more of, I mean, having living outside of Tanzania for quite some time now. Na hiyo challenge ilikuwa kwangu mimi kwamba nilikwenda kwa scholarship nje kusoma, lakini nilikuja kugundua kwamba vitu ambavyo nilisomea apply Tanzania kwa sababu kulikuwa na hiyo unaweza kusema technical or technological gap. Kwa hiyo I ended up kind of like stick around over here. So
we'll come back to that because I have a comment on that. So that's, no, Malaysia.
Yeah, so it is kind of like I wanted to hear your opinion about like you being educated in Tanzania as well as abroad. Mona, so how was your first job experience, and you know, like how does that one kind of has shaped your approach in terms of like helping other people to get to the ladders that you have climbed, and also, you know, giving back to the community the way that you are kind of doing right now?
So I probably won't answer that question. What I will touch on is what you said with regards to your experience. Kwamba umeondoka and umeenda umesoma a particular area. And what you study is really determined by interest.
Engineering. So
yes. So it's determined by interest, and it could be something that is completely novel, new. It's only available, that discipline is only available, or it's only practiced outside of hamna uwezekano wowote. And so in that instance, and this was when I mentioned kwamba for personal reasons or for professional reasons, kwamba mtu professional unaweza kusema kwamba ni ile where I want to go professionally, whether in social engineering, whether in aeronautical sciences, whether in gene therapy. These are areas that are really novel, and either in Canada or the UK, they're only available in certain areas. They're not available in, you know, all the universities or workplaces. Kwangu mimi, that's a valid, and people do that. They say, nimesoma hiki, siwezi nikarudi Tanzania because there's no job opportunity, no career prospects, and that's fair enough. But then the other way of looking at it is to say, and again, you know, this is just my personal experience and my perspective, is that what you can flip that around and say, nimeenda Hammersmith, nimeenda Oxford, nimeenda Imperial, nimeona wanafanya 1, 2, 3. Why don't we take this and just do it back at home? It will take longer, it will be more difficult, lakini kama wameweza hawa kufanya, na sisi, there's no reason why we can't do this, you know? Everything, anything, whether it's Tesla, whether it's it started, somebody thought about it and started it. Kwa hiyo that aspect is an aspect ambayo yani ni ile ya kusema kwamba that's another alternative ya kusema kwamba okay, nimesoma transplant na gene therapy in Oxford or at Imperial. How do I then transfer that technology back home? How do I do it indirectly, directly, online? And it's a process. It's not something that necessarily will take 3 or 5 years. It's something that that will take a long time, but it is doable. I mean, when I think about the sickle cell program, we started it in 2003. That's 20 years ago.
All
So
right.
so it's a long, na tulianza pole 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 pole. It's a long-term investment when you think about whether it's the SK in South Africa, whether it's, ni vitu vinachukua muda mrefu na vinahitaji a lot of investment in time, a lot of investment in terms of money, a lot of investment in terms of people. And it's not an easy task. Lakini, I think it would just be really good. I'm 53 now, but it would be really good in 20 years time kama mnyinyi mnaweza mka reflect na kukaa na kusema kwamba, okay, we had this discussion and we were thinking about doing XYZ. Your area of interest is social engineering. Your area of interest, Asante, is something else. Kwa hiyo unaweza kusema kwamba, okay, we're talking about this now, 2023. 20 years from now, what do you envision happening? Who are the people that you need to mentor to have that happening, whether it's in the countries that you're based in now, whether it's in Tanzania, whether it's both. So it's really, and again, kama the mentorship, the other day nilikuwa naongea na mtu akawa anani-criticize. She was kind. Akawa anani-criticize, tatizo langu mimi ni kwamba mimi ni mzalendo sana. Because when it comes to training, I would start off preference nitaanza wa Tanzania. Nikiona opportunity, whether ni huku au mahali popote, nitafikiria wa Tanzania gani ambao wanaweza. Nikikosa wa Tanzania, nitaenda kwa wa Afrika. Nikikosa wa Afrika, nitaenda kwa watu weusi. And that's just my unfortunate bias. But I think if we're not intentional with these things, it won't, we won't be able to build that critical mass of Black African people.
So I just want to kind of maybe reiterate again. Kwa hiyo ulifanya kazi UK, or you're just studying over there? And
No, nilikuwa nasoma. Nimesoma Muhimbili, and then I came here. And then the way training is for doctors is you study and work. So I studied, and then I got nilikuwa na scholarship. So the first year nilisoma. And then after that, I was working and studying, but I was going back and forth. Tanzania.
And was there someone who kind of like helped you to show the ropes around, like your job, or how to do a research properly, or like any of those?
Yeah, definitely. And that's something ambacho both in Tanzania na huku, huku in the UK na Bosema, and this is the same in the US as well. Ni kwamba there is very clear peer support and very clear mentorship. Kwa hiyo labda nitoe mfano, and this was the mfano about Seche aliniambia that used to happen in the US, is that you have to sit these professional exams to get accredited to practice in the UK, and then to kupata training programs. This is residency. And so Secha akawa anatoa mfano, anasema kwamba ukiwa Marekani, unaona kama Watanzania kila mtu anafanya kazi, anasoma mwenyewe. Lakini Nigerians had this system that they had put in place where they had bought a house, and that house walikuwa wanawaleta top graduates from Nigeria, wanakuja wanakaa kwenye hiyo nyumba. Kwa hiyo they don't have to work, they have a house, they have chakula kinaletwa, they provide the food, and those people just focus on studying and passing the exams. And of course, the better you pass, the better the kind of residency program that you get selected to join. So this was the thing ambacho unaangalia unasema kwamba ni ile inafanyika, wenzetu wanafanya, kwa nini sisi tunachofanya? And I'm really pleased kwa sababu TUHEDA, this is the Tanzania UK Health Diaspora Association, kina Dr. Hamza, they're doing something like that, where they're trying to kind of support people ambao wanataka. But I think hiyo ni muhimu sana, na I don't think there's enough of that I don't think there's enough of that. And because I had it here in during the training now, you know, you observe things. Unaona kabisa kwamba wanaambiwa fanya mtihani huu sasa hivi, fanya nenda kwenye course hii, soma na huyu, kaeni hivi. So that whole thing ni muhimu sana, kitu ambacho hiyo culture bad haiko sana in and it's not just in Tanzania, haipo sana. I think people sometimes are a little bit secretive, wakiona opportunities rather than share, hawashare. Or wakipata opportunity rather than kusema, this is what I did, you need to do this and this and this. So, but the only way to change that, you can't, I used to upset quite a lot of people because I would tell them, you should share, you should do this, you should do that. And you can only do it by doing it yourself. And then if people like it or think it's a good thing, wataiga. And then you just hope that you have enough people for you to change the culture. Yeah.
So naomba ni follow kidogo Gerard hapo. Umezungumzia kwamba in my experience, UK, also US has been one of the places ambayo has been very difficult kwa watu ambao wanataka kuja kupractice, kufanya hiyo mitihani au hata kupata information, kujua vitu gani inabidi wafanye ili waweze kufaulu stage ya mitihani, alafu kupata labda fellowship au observership na vitu kama hivyo. And particularly UK, I think it was very, very difficult. And recently I've been seeing kwamba we have more and more doctors that are practicing over there in the UK. Would you say kwamba TUHEDA is probably one of the resource kwa watu ambao pengine wanatusikiliza hapo nataka kuja kupractice UK? Is it one of the platform ambao wanaweza kaitumia reach out, kuuliza for information ili kujua vitu gani inabidi wafanye ili wao nao waweze kufika stage hiyo?
So yes, TUHEDA they're doing a lot in terms of not just at individual level, lakini yani ile at government level as well, where they worked and established now facilitated an MOU that's been signed at government level between the government of Tanzania and the government of the UK in partnerships in health, kwa hiyo train madaktari, etc. And I think in terms of, you know, you always have one of the things that I've accepted is that you will always have people wanting to leave the country. It's good. It's okay to have a diaspora. I think the critical thing and is to one recognize that wale ambao wanaondoka ni wachache na kuna haja ya kutrain wale ambao wako kule nyumbani as well, so that you you raise the standards, or you raise the quality of education, which results in improving the quality of care, whether it's in health or whether it's in other areas. Kwa hiyo TUHEDA are really good, so they're doing both. They're supporting people ambao wanataka kuja hapa, whether ni kutrain alafu kurudi Tanzania. They're supporting training in Tanzania. Kwa hiyo Dr. Hamza, Dr. Mlawa, Dr. Nasibu, they actually go and back to Tanzania, Zanzibar, na wanafundisha watu, wanapeleka vitu, wanapeleka walimu wa interest. So I personally think they're doing a great thing. And if we could have, I think Dakota and Frank also did this from the US and from others. And I think we just need to kind of come together and say, how can we in Tanzania and in the diaspora, how can we come together to improve things, whether huku or within? Yeah. I think both of you are in the are aware of that effort here, the government through the Tanzania Academy of Science with the Tanzania Diaspora STI. I think we do need to engage with that even more actively, kwa sababu uzuri wa hiyo kwanza, you know, ni government kind of like the government is involved, which is always good long term. Secondly, na pia if the government is involved, pia inawapa confidence private sector ku invest in that. Alafu nafikiri the other aspect ni kwamba, because this is diaspora, it's not just limited to the UK, the US, Canada, etc. it cuts across everybody who's outside. And I think another diaspora ambao we tend to forget ni ambao wako Africa. So there are lots of really good people ambao wako in South Africa, ambao wako in, you know, Namibia, Botswana. So I think when we think, and again, maybe this is me, but mara nyingi nikiwa nafikiria diaspora, hufikiri watu ambao wako
Africa.
Yeah. So I think that's another resource that's valuable and worth thinking about. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. So I have a slightly different query, and this is just more because, like you can see here, we're just two guys, and you're a lady there. And this is kind of like more on like the approach of mentorship between men and women. Hivi unafikiri mfumo dume na mfumo ambao wanawake wanatumia katika mentorship, how do they differ? And is there anywhere that we can kind of learn from what women they're doing in terms of nurturing and bring that into mentorship? And also maybe the way guys that they kind of do their own mentorship thing, like more like leaders and stuff like that, which I don't kind of say that women that don't do that, but I think there's slightly difference in there. But can you touch a little bit on like what women they're doing better than men, and if we can learn from it?
So I think there are two aspects there. I think one aspect is I don't know whether you want to call it the patriarchy or whether you want to call it the it exists, and unfortunately or fortunately there are structures that just need to be addressed because they're institutionalized, they're systemic, and they just need to be addressed. Yeah, I think it's only one aspect. I think the other aspect is that at individual level, unfortunately or fortunately, it's changing society, not as fast as it should, but you know, sometimes it was women would discourage other women, or flip side, they would not encourage other women. So I think that was a factor ambayo sasa hivi inabadilika. Kwa hiyo, you know, you'd find kwamba ni ile women are harsher on other women than even men are. So I think that is something that's inabadilika. I think the other thing ni kwamba, and for me this is something that always strikes me, ni kwamba for the men, because I have mentored men, as I'm sure you know. So for the men that I've mentored directly or indirectly, and na nikilinganisha na wanawake ambao nimewamentor, one of the really significant differences is that the men hata wakiwa wana a fraction of the capacities za wanawake, the men wana the confidence. And so wanasema mimi nitaenda kufanya hivi na hivi na hivi, and it's like you're not even ready, hujafanya. Whereas women unakuta yani ni ile wameshafanya and they have all the competencies and the capacity, unamwambia go for this or go, and they would say no siko tayari. So I think that's a really fundamental difference. And it's I mean, it's a generalization, but I was talking to a surgeon colleague of mine in South Africa, akawa anasema exactly that, where she when she's training male doctors, watamwambia kabisa, I'm ready now, you don't, you know, I can finish up. And it's like, you've only done 3 and you feel that you're ready. And then huko with the female surgeons, unakuta yani ni ile ameshafanya 50, anaambiwa, okay, you're ready now to do it on your own. Mimi, you know, I'm here. And it's like, no, I'm not ready yet. So I think that's something that's there. Now, how do you change that? You have to really just encourage, you know, women to go forward. I think the other, I was involved, I don't know whether you, so there was a period where there was a lot of leadership initiatives and programs saying kwamba tatizo ni leadership. And yes, there is an aspect of that. I just participated in one leadership program, nilivomaliza. I didn't go for others, but I found it really, really valuable because it's made me look at things in a different perspective. And so this is the Tutu Fellowship. I don't know if you've heard about it. It's the African Leadership Institute, based from South Africa. And I found that really, and I liked that because it was Pan-African. You had to be based in Africa for you to, to be eligible to join. And I think they still have that. And I was a tutor fellow in 2011, so almost 12 years ago. And the nice thing about it is that, every year kunakuwa kuna cohort ambao wanapita, and you just, we're a very big community. Some people more active than others within the community. But I think the leadership skills and the leadership is something ambayo ni muhimu. And I think that's something that is, whether it's learning how to mentor, whether it's learning how to lead, whether it's learning how to support people, to push people as well, is
Yes.
something about ni muhimu. And sometimes you can learn it just by observing, quote unquote, good leaders or good people, mentors. And other times you actually have to go on courses or listen to talks where people actually say, this is how to do it, yeah.
Right.
Interesting points umemention hapo kuhusu Jordan, nitagusia kidogo kwenye wanazungumzia kwa mfano kwenye applications za kazi, especially in the US, wanakwambia kwamba mwanamume anaweza akawa ana only requirements 2 tu au 3 out of 10 aka-apply na yuko confidence kabisa na show up kwenye interview. Mwanamke anakuwa na 8 au 9 na bado she's feeling it's not enough. Kwa hiyo I think umegusia kitu cha muhimu sana hapo kuwa encourage kina mama na dada zetu kwamba yani kwanza it's never enough. You can never be perfect. But when you feel like in that case, when you have like 9 out of 10 requirements, it's more than enough. They usually look at 50% or something. 5 out of 10. When you meet 5 out of 10, the rest of them they're coachable, they're trainable. They're not looking for somebody that is the rock star that has everything, and probably the rock star that has everything will probably go and find and start his own company and do something else. Kwa hiyo, I think that's a very interesting point.
Yeah, and I think katika computer science or even software in general, tuna hili tatizo kubwa sana kwamba even me, when I remember I'm in the lab.
Sorry, Gerald, did you say wewe unafanya software engineering or social? So for some reason I thought software engineering. Okay.
Yeah, so software engineering. Yeah. So we have this issue where women, they tend to be like almost non-existent in the lab. You look at the lab and it's majority men. And even like software themselves, sasa hivi ukiangalia vitu vingi vinaendelea, they are mostly majority, specific hii inaongelea kwenye AI, utakuta kwamba it's specifically white male dominated industry. And it's challenging kwa sababu kwa mfano kama hizo features ambazo tunaziona sasa hivi zinakuja mainly ni kwa sababu male white men, they have created those features. Ziko bias. Kwa hiyo we need diversity, and part of that diversity is even to recognize those marginalized groups or groups that they need to have a little bit of an empowerment kind of thrust to them. Na hii inakuja katika I guess area nyingine ambayo tunaona, kwa mfano unaanza na wanawake wengi katika masomo ya STEM au hata katika computer, utakuta kuna wanawake wengi, but by the time when you get to like undergrad and then you're moving towards postgrad, you see the level of the number of women participating in those programs, is decreasing so much. So I don't know whether that one can be handled through mentorship or is it something different?
It's got to be intentional. It's got to be intentional. Well, one of the things that we did when we started H3 Africa, this is genetic research in Africa, a big aspect of it was bioinformatics, data science. And so there were not enough people, and what we wanted to do was to change and say, sisi hatutakuwa tunapeleka data to Sanger Institute in Cambridge or to MIT in the US. Hapana, tunataka to tujifunze how to do this. So over the past 12 years, and interestingly, the lead PI is Nicola Mulder, who's a woman. white South African ambaye yani ni one of the leading bioinformatics people in Africa. And again, within that, you've got to be intentional in the sense that you've got to say yani, whether you want to call it a quota system, whether you want to call it whatever, affirmative action, but you've got to say hapa lazima tupate wanawake, lazima tupate watu weusi, lazima tupate, you know, watu kutoka these groups, and you've got to do that because as we all know, there isn't a fundamental difference in intellectual capacity between people. It's just what wanachopewa na kutambua wale ambao wanaweza. Kwa hiyo ukiangalia with the bioinformatics program and what we've done, we have both men and women. You know, not enough, lakini wapo, and in data science as well. And in terms of it's really just demonstrating kwamba inawezekana, and all you need, and you know, we can talk about the whole thing about role models. All you need is to have people kuonyesha kwamba inawezekana, and then once umeshaonyesha, then it becomes easier for people to say, if Gerald was able to become a software engineer, I can do that as well. If somebody, yani mwanamke, and of course you always will be drawn to people who are most like you.
Yeah, that's very, very interesting, and part of what we're doing with the SHIP is ndio hiyo watu wapate kuona au watu wengine from, I mean, different genders that have succeeded and done things that other people may think they're kind of like impossible. Lakini if we can go through that story, they can see that and say, oh, I'm already doing that, so I only need to do this and that to get to that level. Exactly. And then all of a sudden we are making some kind of an impact. Swali kwako, Professor Makani, for somebody that looks up to you as a role model, they have aspiration to get to where you are, what early advice do you have for such a person?
Ni kwamba ni ile mentors or support, I think it's really, really critical. Kwa hiyo kama wewe unafanya masters or PhD or whatever, I think it's really valuable to kind of look around and say, darasani au kazini, who is the person that I want to be like? Who is the person that I don't want to be like? And then you learn that way. You say, I'll learn this, and that's something that you do, kabisa. The other thing that I found valuable, kabisa, and this is something that I started bahati nzuri mapema na mpaka sasa hivi, is that, you know, they may not call themselves my mentors. I call them quote unquote advisors. And one of my advisors, kwa mfano, is somebody ambaye she's probably 10, 15 years younger than me. And you know, she's very, very experienced and competent in management and kind of that kind of program management and kind of administration, HR and all that. Naomba uwe advisor. So I go to her at program level, institutional level, nasema, what do you think about this? And that applies to also to individual level. If I, you know, as when you're at certain levels, you have these situations where you get headhunted into an maybe, and sometimes you're just saying, you know what, let me find out what's going on. So she'll come and say, you know what, this is not worth it, this is worth it. So I think having mentors and advisors throughout your career is very important. I think the mistake that we do, or that I've observed some people do, ni kwamba wakimaliza masters, wakimaliza PhD, wakimaliza degree, wakifika a certain level, they feel, sasa hivi sihitaji ushauri wowote. So that's really, really bad. And then the other thing that I think, so that's, it doesn't matter who you are, you should have people that you trust who can advise you, or you can go and bounce off ideas. I think the other thing as well is that I have made mistakes, and I think it's also important to talk about mistakes that you make and to also talk about failures, because again, those are lessons. Because mtu akiangalia anaweza kusema kwamba, oh my goodness, you know, you've done really well, you've never failed. And the reality is that as we all know, it's impossible to
go without
do
failure.
anything without failure, yeah, or making mistakes. And you just have to kind of have that perspective as well, that I think is important to share. Yeah.
Kwa wafundisha wengine resilience ile kuambia kwamba we all go through those failures. It's just a matter of how you learn from those failures and keep pushing forward. I think that's really, really awesome. Professor, tumejifunza vitu vingi sana kutoka kwako leo. Mimi nimefurahi kusikia hiyo story, even going all the way back to Weru. Ni kitu kingine nijifunza ambacho nimefurahi kukisikia kutoka kwako ni hiyo aspect ya ku give back. But what I really liked ni to find ways in which to formulate some kind of partnership between watu walioko diaspora na watu walioko nyumbani, ili kuwa na whatever ideas that watu wa nyumbani wanakuwa nazo au watu wa nje wanakuwa nazo, find a way in which kushirikiana na kuona namna ya ku give back. Alafu nimeipenda vile vile hiyo concept ya diaspora, tuwe tunaiangalia vile vile diaspora, watu walioko nyumbani. Lakini naona watu wengi ambao watakuwa na interest ya kuja UK waifuatilie hiyo THESHIP, waone hizo program wanazofanya na wajifunze kutoka kwenye hiyo. Lastly, I think ya mambo ya gender based mentorship na really kuwa encourage kina mama kutafuta mentors namba moja na enter into spaces ambazo pengine watu wengine hawazi kina mama wengi mara nyingi wanakuwa hawapo. I think lastly ndio hiyo ku identify key advisors ambao wanaweza kukusaidia vile vile ku navigate through that path. Any final words kabla tuja kushukuru na kuaga?
No, just really thank you for inviting me, and I do think that the maendeleo ya Tanzania and excellence in different fields in Tanzania can only be done, not can only, should be done by Tanzanians in partnerships with other Tanzanians within and outside of Tanzania, and in partnerships with others. Lakini, we really need to own our own progress. Yeah.
Right.
Perfect. So thank you very much, Professor Makani. To our audience, for future episode, please subscribe to our social media channels. Kwa ziada unaweza kujiunga vile vile kwenye mitandao yetu ya jamii kukuuliza maswali. Please feel free to send us an email regarding any suggestion for mentors that can participate in the SHIP platform. Till then, ciao.
Ciao. Bye now.
Bye, asanteni. Best wishes.
Asante sana.